everyone, it's Julia. Thank you so much for joining me today. I have a friend who is doing a mission trip with her husband, and they're having a fundraiser and they're having a silent auction, and so I'm donating a silent auction item for this this trip for them. And I decided on this FreeMotion applique that says "Birds don't worry, they sing," and put it on a tote bag. I think I might try to fill the bag with some things also, but for now I'm working on this. I'm going to be making another one for my Etsy shop, and so I thought I would show you how I created this. One of the things I've been working on this year is writing with FreeMotion, and so this is all done with FreeMotion. I have decided that it's a lot easier than it looks, and it's really a muscle memory thing. And it just takes some practice, but once you get going with it, it's really quite easy to do. And I mean, the sky's the limit. It's just amazing what you can do with the FreeMotion once you just learn the steps to it. Another thing I wanted to try in some of more of my designs is to add some fabric in some of the pieces. You can see the gray on the bird and also some of the flowers, but then leave some of it as negative space so I can add some Inktense coloring on it. Gives it more of just a painty look maybe, and then also adding some of the stencils and things in the background. It's just real faint, but there are some color to the background on this. If you aren't comfortable with the writing part on your designs, one of the pens that I love using, and I'm going to show you, I'll link them down below. I actually got them on Amazon, and they're the Pit pens. They come in a pack of 4 with different tips. There's an extra small, medium, and a bold. I love these for fabric. They are waterproof. They don't like wick or bleed into the fibers. Any kind of an alcohol ink does that, like a Sharpie. Even though it's a permanent pen, it's going to do that bleeding type of thing. Well, this does not do that. It stays really nice. So I would recommend, if you're wanting to write on your projects but don't want to try, don't think your ability is to the actual writing with it, with your sewing machine, you can certainly use the Pit pens on fabric. When I drew out my bird, first of all, I want to tell you that I'm not a drawer. I went and looked on several different images and just looked at some actual pictures and just looked at birds. And they're not that hard to draw. And when I draw, it's real sketchy, but so is my FreeMotion, and that's the look I like. So it wasn't that big a deal for me to draw this little bird. And I put him on a little twig, and I figured out how I wanted the words to go on it. And then what I did was I traced it, again using my Pit pens. And I used the bold or the medium on this because I wanted to be able to see it through the fabric. Now the fabric that I've chosen, I've been using this in the last couple weeks if you've been following me. I'm using this drop cloth, which is 100% cotton, and it's like a canvas. It has slubs in it, and it's just a real interesting fabric. And another thing I love about it is it's really easy to fray the edges of it. And on my piece, on my tote bag, the edges are frayed, and I just stitched it right onto the tote bag. And I really like that look. To do this, I actually just drew my design using the Friction pens. Now this is a pen by Pilot, and it is not meant for fabric, so always test it first. But what you can do is you can draw on your fabric, and then the iron will just take it away. There are some fabrics that will leave, especially darker fabrics, that it will leave like a white mark, so always test your fabrics first. I know just by knowing what fabrics do, like I do a lot of stitching on my sweatshirts are pigment dyed. I would never use these on a pigment dyed fabric because I just know if that fabric, that color lifts anyway if you rub on it. So just keep that in mind and test. But I love it for any kind of lighter weight fabrics, any muslins, anything like that. I use it on linens. I use it in Ossenberg fabric. Works wonderful. Now, this is heavier, and so I can't really see this bird through this, and so I take it to a light source. It's a nice sunny day right now, and so I'm just going to take this to my window and trace it. But you can also use I have this really inexpensive light box that just turns on. It's by Doris. Again, I'll link this stuff down below for you. If you're doing this in the middle of the night, and sometimes I do this in the middle of the night. Sometimes it's midnight when I'm working on these kind of things, and I need some sort of a light source. So I'm going to go to my window, and I'm going to be tracing my bird using my FreeMotion pens. Just to show you how slick these FreeMotion pens are. Let's say you have this all written out, but you don't like it, or you got it in the wrong spot. Again, you can just take your iron and just go over it. It'll completely disappear, and you can start over. I have my little bird drawn on. I want to add some fabric to this, and I've decided I want to add this piece in gray, the tail in a darker gray, and then I want to add some flowers over on this part. And I have this fabric with flowers on it. I'm going to just be cutting out some of these. And then to get the pattern, all I did was I laid another piece of copy paper or just scrap paper, and I can see this design through here. I drew it out, I cut it out, and these are the pieces that I'm going to lay on my fabrics. I found just scraps again. I'm just trying to figure out what I'm doing, but I'm thinking I'm going to use this one for the top piece. I'm going to cut the tail out of this one, and then I'm going to be cutting some of the little flowers out. I'm using white school glue just to attach these pieces. Now you don't want to use like a heat and bond on the back of these or anything like, you don't want to put your iron on this because all these lines will disappear. Just ask me how I know that. I'm just telling you because everything I tell you I've done already the wrong way. So I am using the school glue to attach these. You must leave this dry completely before you take it to the sewing machine, or it's going to gum up in your needle, and you don't want that. Another thing you can do, of course, is to heat set it, but you can't do that because your lines are going to disappear. So just be patient and let it dry naturally. Now I have my FreeMotion foot on, which is like a little quilting foot. Sometimes they're called a darner foot. I do have black thread in my bobbin, and I am using a bobbin thread. Bobbin thread is a little bit thinner and it doesn't lint up as much, and I do prefer using a bobbin thread in my bobbin. I also have black thread on the top. My feed dogs are dropped. On my machine, I move my stitch length to 0. And I think that's all I need to say. My feed dogs are dropped, so I'm going to be doing all the movement. Now you're going to notice I'm not going to be going just specifically on the applique or the fabric. I'm going to be going off. I'm going to be making some just real sketchy type stitches, going back and forth to give it a sketchy look. And that's what I'm going for on this piece. I go back and forth just a few times to secure my stitch, and then I'm going to cut my thread. forgot to mention that I do have a piece of quilt backing on the back of this, so I did use both layers when I went over to my sewing machine to do my stitching. And I love the back side of this. You can really see the sketchy look on the back side, especially with the black bobbin thread. My next step is to get rid of all the lines that I just didn't quite hit just by touching it with my iron. And again, those will just disappear. I will be adding some color to this now, and I'm going to be using my Inktense by Derwent. These are a colored pencil that once activated will dry permanent, so they work really well for fabric. I do activate with the fabric medium by Golden. The GAC 900 is my favorite, and I also heat set this afterwards. It does need to be heat set. Now this is not a project that's going to be washed, but if you are interested in using or adding color to fabric, these are really fun to play with. They are not opaque, they are more of a transparent, more of a watercolor look, but they're a lot of fun. Now I do have a water pen with the fabric medium in it, so which is what I'm going to be using. This one is not actually a paintbrush, it's a blender, so this is just a hard piece of felt on here. Normally I use a scrubber brush, but I don't have any of my fabric scrubber brushes here. So this has been working. A little bit messy. I do use a paper towel to do the squeezing out, and then once this is wet, then I do the activating. So you'll see me work with that. I'm going to be choosing a couple different colors of green and some gray, and of course a little bit of orangey yellow for the beaks. I'm going to be adding a little bit of red on his belly. This part I'm going to be leaving white. Now these are not opaque, and so I do have a white pencil, but it's probably not going to show up on this. I think I'm going to use an acrylic white to map, just to put on some, just a dry brush on some white. And so I'm just going to probably put on some music and just fast forward through this, and you can see some of the coloring. I'm going to say too that I'm not doing any fancy shading on this. This is just getting some color on this and just to add some spice to it. I'm adding the color first, and then taking my fabric medium and activating all those areas. And here's my acrylic white paint that I'm using. I thought it would be fun to add some stamping with this musical stamp, and I'm using an archival ink, which is a waterproof ink here. And then adding some of the same archival ink and colors through a stencil. This is a Plaid stencil, and I do not have the number on it, but any background stencil would work just fine for this. It just adds a little bit of texture to the background. Now on to ironing this, and it does take 3 to 5 minutes to iron or to heat set this fabric medium. Trimming it out now and getting it all the edges even before I attach it to my tote bag. I have some zippered pouches also with this design in my Etsy shop that turned out really cute, so check that out. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.